welcome back. You know something that's been bugging me lately?
What's that?
It seems like everywhere I look, it's all left this and right that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But does anyone even know what those words really mean anymore?
I mean, it feels like everyone has their own definition.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we're going to try to figure out this whole left versus right thing.
Sounds good.
What is the history? What's the real story behind those labels?
Well, you're not going to believe this, but
What?
it all goes back to where people sat in France more than 200 years ago.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah. Picture this. It's 1789, the French Revolution.
Okay, the French Revolution.
And the National Assembly is meeting. The people who supported the king sat on the president's right,
Okay.
and the people who wanted to limit the king's power sat on the left.
You're kidding. So that's really where it started.
And it is.
Wow. That's both hilarious and mind-blowing at the same time.
Oh, right.
Our whole understanding of politics is based on where people sat in a room over 200 years ago.
It's amazing how much things change. It's like what started as a seating arrangement became shorthand for these complex political ideologies.
Yeah, but those ideologies have obviously changed so much since then.
Absolutely. So much has changed since they were debating monarchy.
So how should we think about left and right today?
I think the best way to think about it is like a spectrum.
Okay, so it's more than just two sides.
Exactly. A whole range of different views.
So what are the big differences between the left and right?
Well, on the left, you usually find an emphasis on things like social justice and equality. They're also often more focused on progress and being more internationally minded.
Okay, that makes sense.
Think about labor unions
Okay.
or the movements for racial equality and gender equality.
Yeah, those have historically been on the left. So it's about fighting for fairness and a better future for everyone.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
But what about on the other side? What defines the right?
Well, the right is more often focused on authority and tradition. They really value order and tend to be more nationalistic.
So things like having a strong military.
Exactly. Or an established church.
So it's about stability and preserving the past and strong national identity.
Yeah, that sums it up pretty well.
But that's not the whole story, right?
Of course not. There are all sorts of variations within both the left and the right. It's not just two neat little boxes.
Yeah, things are never that simple, are they?
Nope.
So if it's more like a spectrum, where does that leave labels like far left or center right?
Well, let's think about it like a map.
Okay, I like it.
On the far left, you'd find communism and anarchism.
Okay, communism.
Yeah.
I kind of get that. Abolishing private property, right?
Yeah, that's the basic idea.
But anarchism.
It's actually more about self-governing communities and rejecting hierarchies.
Huh. That's not what I pictured at all.
Yeah, a lot of people have misconceptions about it.
So what about the center left?
Well, the center left is more about working within existing systems.
Okay.
They want to create social change through things like social democracy
Okay.
or progressivism.
Gotcha. So more about improving the system, not overhauling it entirely.
Exactly. What about on the other side of the spectrum?
Okay, yeah. What flavors of right are we talking about?
So on the center right, you've got conservatism,
Hmm.
and then you've got conservative liberalism.
Okay.
And a good example of a centrist ideology would be Christian democracy.
So these are different ways of balancing individual freedom with the good of society
That's a good way to think about it.
and figuring out how much role the government should play.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the far right.
Yeah. To be honest, the far right kind of scares me.
Yeah, it's definitely important to understand it.
And it's a serious part of our deep dive today.
Yeah, and one we need to handle carefully.
I think this is a good place to pause.
Yeah, I agree. We'll delve into this more in our next segment. This is heavy stuff, but knowledge is power, right? And understanding the dangers of far-right ideologies is so important. It's essential to protecting ourselves against them.
So when we talk about the dangers of the far right, what are we really talking about? What makes those ideologies so dangerous?
Historically, far-right ideologies have led to some really bad things,
Like what?
like authoritarianism, the suppression of anyone who disagrees with them, and discrimination against minority groups.
Yeah, like Nazi Germany.
Exactly. Nazi Germany is a perfect example of where those ideologies can lead. The Holocaust is a horrific reminder of the human cost of far-right extremism.
It's hard to believe something like that could happen today.
But sadly, it can happen anywhere. Those seeds of intolerance and hatred, they can take root anywhere.
Especially when people are afraid or believe misinformation.
That's right. The far right often uses scapegoating and fear-mongering. They target specific groups, based on their ethnicity or their religion or really any other difference.
Creating a climate of intolerance and violence?
Exactly. And that destroys a just and equitable society.
And this isn't just a problem of the past, is it?
Unfortunately not. We're seeing a resurgence of these movements in many parts of the world today. All that dangerous rhetoric is gaining traction again.
It's scary.
Yeah,
Like, it feels like some of those dangerous ideas are becoming more popular again.
you're absolutely right. We're seeing a rise in nationalism,
Oh, yeah.
anti-immigrant rhetoric, a rejection of multiculturalism.
These are all classic signs of far-right movements.
They really appeal to people who feel left behind by societal changes. And they offer simple solutions for complicated problems.
And scapegoats. Don't forget the scapegoats.
Yeah, lots of scapegoats.
Yeah.
It's scary, honestly. It makes you wonder how we can counter these trends. Like, how do we protect democratic values in such a polarized world? It feels like everyone's just retreating to their own corners. No one wants to listen to anyone who disagrees with them. That is the big question, isn't it? How do we break down those echo chambers?
Yeah.
How do we foster constructive dialogue? I think this is where the idea of centrism is really important.
Okay, centrism. Finding that middle ground.
Yeah, where we can build bridges instead of burning them.
I've always struggled with the idea of centrism, to be honest.
Oh, come.
It feels like compromising your values sometimes. Or just settling for solutions that don't really solve the problem. Like, what does a centrist approach even look like?
That's a good point. Centrism isn't about abandoning your principles or settling for less.
Okay, so what is it about?
It's about recognizing that complex problems rarely have easy answers, that different viewpoints can help us find the best way forward.
So it's more about finding solutions that work for most people, even if they're not perfect for everyone.
Exactly. It's about compromise and collaboration.
It's about pragmatism,
Yes.
working together.
Recognizing that we're all part of the same society, on the same planet.
It's finding common ground.
Yes, but also still respecting our differences.
So it's about balance.
Exactly. A balance between holding onto your values, but also being open to different ways of achieving your goals.
And engaging with people who have different views.
Yes, you don't have to agree with them.
Right.
But you do have to listen to them, try to understand their perspective.
This conversation is making me rethink how I approach these conversations.
Oh, good.
I often find myself getting caught up in that us versus them mentality.
It's so easy to do.
Yeah, but now I'm realizing that it's so much more nuanced than that.
It really is. Remember, political labels are just a starting point.
Right.
They shouldn't define us or limit our ability to have thoughtful conversations.
We shouldn't let those labels prevent us from working together to solve problems.
I love that.
Yeah.
You're getting it.
You know, this whole deep dive has been so eye-opening.
Good. I'm glad.
I came in feeling kind of lost in this whole left versus right thing. But now I feel like I have a better understanding, not just of the labels, but of the values behind them.
That's what we were hoping for.
And more importantly, I have a new sense of hope. That we can find a way forward together, even with all our differences. That's what it's all about. Remember, political dialogue doesn't have to be a battle. It can be a journey, a process of learning and growth. And by engaging in these conversations with an open mind and a willingness to listen, we can create a more informed and compassionate and ultimately more united society.
Well said. Thanks for helping us understand all of this. It's been a truly insightful deep dive. Wow, I feel like I just learned so much.
Me too.
But if I'm being honest, I still have so many questions.
Yeah.
Like, where do we go from here?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It really is. How do we actually put all of this into practice?
I think it takes constant effort and engagement. It's not about reaching some end point.
Okay, so it's a journey.
Exactly, a journey of continuous learning and dialogue.
But are there any concrete steps we can take to navigate this crazy political landscape?
Well, I think one really important step is to remember that left and right are always changing.
They're not fixed categories.
Exactly. They're constantly evolving, shaped by everything that's going on in the world.
So what will they even mean in the future, like 20 years from now?
That's a great question. What factors will shape those meanings?
Will new technologies create completely new political divides?
Ooh, that's interesting.
Will climate change completely change how we think about individual versus collective responsibility?
It's exciting to think about, isn't it?
It is. What if there are totally new ideologies, ones we can't even imagine right now?
Right. It really makes you think.
I never thought of it like that before. It's like we're not just stuck where we are now.
Right.
Things are always changing.
Exactly.
That's both exciting and a little bit scary.
Definitely. It means things can change for the better.
Yeah.
But it also means we have to watch out for new types of extremism or the return of old ones.
So how do we stay informed
Yeah.
and engaged without getting completely overwhelmed by all the information and opinions out there? It's just so much.
I know. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
I think it's crucial to develop critical thinking skills.
Okay, critical thinking skills. Being able to evaluate sources,
Yeah.
identify biases, separate fact from fiction.
So we can't just believe everything we read or hear
Exactly. We have to be really careful about what information we consume.
and question our own assumptions.
Yes, and
Yeah.
look for different perspectives.
And that's where this whole deep dive comes in, right?
It does.
By understanding the history, the core values, the potential dangers.
Exactly.
We're better equipped to navigate this complex world.
I think so too.
This whole conversation has been a real eye-opener for me.
I'm so glad to hear that.
I came in feeling so lost in this whole left versus right thing,
I know, I can feel that way.
but now I feel like I have a better map,
Hmm.
a compass to help me find my way.
You got it.
And I feel hopeful that we can find a way forward together.
That's what it's all about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep talking to each other.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This has been great.
This has been great.